April 2012, and I'm back in Iraq, in Zakho, on the border with Turkey. I have an appointment this morning with Khaled and his taxi. The United States said they would make a democracy out of Iraq in the heart of the Arab world. But the Iraq I see today is a country on the brink of chaos, torn between three groups, Kurds, Sunnis and Shias. It is a country divided, a stranger to peace that I'm about to cross, a taxi ride to the heart of Iraqi history. From Zakho in the north, I'll travel down through Erbil, Sulaymaniyah, Kirkuk, Mosul, Tikrit, Fallujah, Baghdad, Babylon, Kerbala, Basra, and Al-Faw. A roadmap of the Iraqi tragedy.
Obviously, I'm delighted the Americans have finally left Iraq. We Iraqis are very happy not to see them here anymore. Enough was enough. The Americans occupied us, so we hate them. Here in Iraq, they killed and created the conditions for chaos. They're responsible for the whole tragedy. We were living in peace, and they came to destroy our country and us with it.
My journey begins along the mountains of Iraqi Kurdistan. An army of 200,000 soldiers called Peshmerga watch over this rather particular region of the country. My first stop is in Erbil, the capital of Iraqi Kurdistan. It's the only region of Iraq today that is seeing peace and an economic boom. The miracle has been made possible by the discovery of oil on Kurdish territory. For a long time dominated by Baghdad and Saddam Hussein, Kurdistan dreams of achieving autonomy. The first customer, the first passenger on our trip, is a member of the new Kurdish parliament.
In Iraq, we can say that oil has always been a curse. But today in Kurdistan, that's changing. Foreign oil companies are coming here to work with us. Oil revenues are finally being used for reconstruction. It's a huge difference for us, as in Saddam's times, we never benefited from the oil money. It's quite simple. We're Kurds before we're Iraqis. I think that very rapidly, as soon as we've been able to create a stable basis for building a country, 99% of people will vote for independence. The people want their own country, a country called Kurdistan. They want their own passport, a Kurdish one.
A land of shepherds, Kurdistan is discovering wealth through its oil, a nightmare for Baghdad, which had long control of the resources and riches. With our driver Khaled, we head east towards Sulaymaniyah and the mountains along the border with Iran. Driving through abandoned villages, I feel like I'm visiting cemeteries. Our passenger, Ahmed, is a survivor. Today he's on a pilgrimage paying tribute to the dead.
In 1988, during the Al Anfal military campaign waged by Saddam against the Kurds, my village was completely destroyed. Some of the inhabitants were deported to southern Iraq and locked up in the terrible Nugra Salman prison camp. Many women, children and men were massacred and thrown into mass graves.
The Kurds have always dreamed of independence. Saddam Hussein decided to eliminate the problem once and for all. His cousin, to go down in history as Chemical Ali, was in charge of the repression. On March 16, 1988, his helicopters dropped bombs loaded with toxic gas over Kurdish villages. 100,000 civilians were killed and 3,000 villages were razed. The Kurds' rebellion was crushed.
Here in the villages, the Peshmerga hid and built up supplies. Anyone opposed to Saddam could seek refuge here. So the regime began by attacking the villages. For Saddam, burning, gassing and destroying the villages meant controlling Kurdistan.
Lunch is like a homage to the victims. On the menu, a dolma, stuffed vegetables prepared by Ahmed's wife. A Sunni like Saddam Hussein, my driver Khaled is ill at ease. He didn't know or didn't want to know the terrible truth.
Look, I'll show you the house where I was born. Here on this hillock where we're sitting is like a memorial to the village as it was before the tragedy. It was here that the villagers came together every evening to talk, to play backgammon and listen to the radio.
I leave Ahmed to mourn and commemorate his loved ones. We continue towards the east and Kirkuk, the former capital of Kurdistan, today on Iraqi territory.
God be praised, I'm not scared. When the region was under American control, I was afraid. But as soon as the Iraqi police and army took over, things got much better. The Americans didn't know the region, they were afraid and trigger happy. They didn't hesitate to fire at anyone who approached them. A passenger, a foreigner, anyone. This road has seen a lot of drama. How many times did the Americans shoot down Iraqis here for no reason?
Through the windscreen, the first Iraqi checkpoint appears. It's time to lower the camera and film more discreetly. The soldiers here are regularly targeted by armed groups and are also quick to shoot. Attacks and kidnappings are frequent in the area. Checking our identity and itinerary takes 2 long hours. But at last we can hit the road again, a road that is more than dangerous.
To be honest, no one took this road before. Al-Qaeda, or basically all the terrorists, controlled the region. Everyone was afraid of venturing out on this road. Today, we feel a bit safer.
The constant roadblocks mean our 200-kilometer journey takes 8 hours. Night has fallen when I reach Kirkuk, and the sky is lit up by flare stacks. The city floats on a vast sea of oil. For centuries, pilgrims came here to gather around the eternal flames. The Kurds would dearly love to reclaim the city, their former capital, but Baghdad is unwilling to lose such a profitable treasure. Once home to a majority of Kurds, Kirkuk today is a mix of Turkmen, Arabs, Kurds and Christians. A veritable ethnic powder keg. This morning's client is Aram, a Kurd. For Kirkuk and Kurdistan's independence, he would pay with his own blood.
Kirkuk
has to become part of Kurdistan again. It's vital. We are bonded by blood to Kurdistan. They can kill us and shoot at us, but it won't change anything. We are linked to Kurdistan. We could not live outside of Kurdistan. It would be like dying. My brother, I invite you to a restaurant. I cannot let you go without inviting you. I am a Kurd, and hospitality is a custom with us. You can continue your journey after the meal. I swear before God, come to the restaurant with me. You are welcome.
For Khaled, it's time to pray, and for us to eat. As we enter the village, a few policemen appear as an escort. I would say to watch us, they say to protect us. And so I pay for everyone's meal as a kind of friendly tax. It's said that Kirkuk could be one of the world's richest cities. It is certainly one of the most dangerous. A discreet and ordinary heroine, Saima, who is a Kurd, invested her Arab husband's fortune in the opening of a private school. A generous act which has attracted envious attention.
I'm terrified. The day after an advert was broadcast to promote the school, I got a telephone call. Hello? Hello? No name, nothing. A man introduced himself as a member of a terrorist organization and demanded money. My colleagues were terrorized. I closed the school for a month, and then I said, we have to open it again. We can't just give in. We have to work. Life has to go on. Neither the terrorists nor anyone else can stop me from working. Only God is the master of my destiny.
When we reach Mosul, the second biggest city in Iraq, it has been locked down by the army. The previous night, 2 bombs went off in the souk. I have to negotiate with the military chiefs for 3 hours before they let me in. I cross what appears to be a dead city, and yet today, Mosul is in party mode.
My name is Ahmed Anbar. I'm a law student. Today is a festival, University Day. That's why we can see all the troops. They're here to protect us. The situation is very difficult. The country is undergoing a wave of anonymous attacks and assassinations. My dream is quite simple. I just want to live in an Iraq that's safe and at peace. It's a magnificent country, we mustn't forget that. It was once respectfully known as Mesopotamia, the land between 2 rivers. I dream of peace.
But peace seems impossible. The Americans have gone, but now Kurds, Shias and Sunnis battle for control of the city. Even the mosques are under military protection. The internecine killing goes on in the name of Allah. I leave Mosul with no regrets. This road, fraught with danger, can also hold certain surprises. Khaled stops to help a friend. Even in Iraq, one can run out of petrol.
It's hilarious. We have the world's second biggest oil reserves and we're short of petrol and gas. We're reduced to filling up on the black market at exorbitant prices. Common sense would suggest that petrol was available in quantity and free. Perhaps not free, but not too expensive anyway.
As soon as we arrive on the outskirts of Tikrit, Saddam Hussein's former stronghold, we're arrested by the police. I have the feeling we were expected. after a few hours of questioning, were put under house arrest in a hotel and forbidden from going out. The situation eases the following afternoon when we're granted 2 hours of freedom, but we're still under close surveillance. The next man who joins us in the taxi is in mourning. His name's Fadil. He's a journalist, and he lost his best friend just 2 days ago.
Iraq. Sorry. They want to make Iraq a wretched country. They assassinate the best among us. The terrorist who kills a journalist, like my colleague at the news channel, or who kills a religious man, an academic, or a teacher, certainly doesn't do it for religious reasons. It's obvious he does it mostly for money, because our religion does not tolerate all these crimes. The only motive for these crimes is money, and they're ordered from outside to kill our best people.
In the city center, the mosque still bears the name of the man who built it, Saddam Hussein. Fadil has come to pay a final homage to his murdered friend. On April 2nd, 2012, Kamiran Sahaleddin, a journalist for a local TV station, was killed instantly when his car exploded. A relaxing evening along the banks of the Tigris, overseen by the palace of the local hero, Saddam. Saddam was always surrounded by members of his own tribe, and many here miss the man who built a Sunni state, much to their advantage.
The Americans didn't come here to look for weapons of mass destruction or to hunt down Saddam Hussein. They came to rob us and to kill us. Iraq was a unified country. But when they arrived, the Americans triggered divisions by creating ethnic conflicts. You know this very well. They destroyed everything and then they left. But in reality, they're still here. They make people think they've gone, but they're still present. Their aim is to create discord in Iraq.
As we leave Tikrit, we come to a village, the heart of Saddam Hussein's kingdom, where he was finally caught. On December 14th, 2003, Saddam was captured at dawn in his hideout in a farmyard, a miserable rat hole 2 meters underground. Disheveled and distraught, he surrendered to the American forces. In his possession were 2 Kalashnikovs and $750,000. Our old taxi is a gas guzzler, and we need more petrol. We seek out the black market, a parallel business which fills the coffers of a few politicians, civil servants, and terrorist groups too. The oil money benefits everyone, apart from the Iraqi people. The temperature hits more than 40 degrees, and the machines are cooled down with a hose. For the men, it's time to wash and pray before sitting down for a meal. They're surprised by my presence, but soon open up. For these Sunni customers, the whole affair is an American manipulation.
Kuwait plays a key role in the Arab world. The Americans used the country to trap Saddam. They set the bait, and he took it. It was a prearranged ambush.
It's time to leave and head for Fallujah. Khaled doesn't like stopping for too long. Kidnappings are frequent here, and for the criminal gangs, everyone has a price, probably including me. The killing and the kidnappings may be motivated by political or religious convictions, but increasingly simply for profit. I've lost count of the checkpoints along the way, but the controls this morning seem interminable. I don't know who this V for Victory sign is aimed at as we finally enter the ravaged city of Fallujah.
Fallujah was the scene of one of the most violent American offensives. The GIs summarily killed youngsters and whole families here. They blew up homes and caused a lot of fatalities. Fallujah is the most ravaged city in Iraq. Oh yes, that's the Americans.
The heat is unbearable and our motor is overheating. The local grocer helps us to cool it. He's a man driven by anger. He experienced the Battle of Fallujah at first hand.
You call that democracy? No, it's quite simply about killing and stealing our wealth. Our lands were burnt from the effects of the white phosphorus bombs, and now our children are born disfigured. Go and see the hospitals and you'll see mothers throwing away their babies deformed by all the chemical weapons. If there's justice in the world, Bush will have to answer for his war crimes and crimes against humanity. He claimed Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. But where were they, these weapons? Bush was a killer using white phosphorus bombs. Not even the mosque was saved from his barbarity. Look at the ruined minaret. That's Bush's democracy.
On November 7th, 2004, a deluge of iron and fire rained down on the city of 200 mosques. Fallujah had to die. It was the last stronghold for the Al-Qaeda Mujahideen. 12,000 Marines, 300 tanks and 100 or so helicopters were launched against Fallujah. The biggest urban battle in Iraq was underway. The American victory was total. The casualty figures speak for themselves. 100 American soldiers were killed, and on the Iraqi side, it's estimated there were between 4,000 and 5,000 victims, most of them civilians. The battle left a city in ruins, where death continued to take its toll. In their offensive, it's thought, the US troops used white phosphorus bombs and depleted uranium weapons, banned by all international conventions. Our new passenger is an administrator at the General Hospital. Since the Battle of Fallujah ended, he has kept records of the children born with congenital malformations. For him, there's no doubt the Americans were responsible for this tragedy. For me, the administrator's office becomes an antechamber of horrors.
The war is far from over. In fact, it's still going on. For the stigmata are there, and they're evolving. In 2005, we noted a spectacular increase in genetic malformations in newborn babies. These photos only show a tiny part of the reality. Just for the month of January, we recorded 43 cases.
Visiting the General Hospital in Fallujah is like living your worst nightmare. Children with two heads, tumors, malformations, missing limbs. A macabre and unbearable litany. They say every family here is sheltering or hiding a deformed, monstrous child.
I'm the grandmother. My daughter cries all day long, but she hopes to see her daughter get better.
Deeply affected, I leave Fallujah, the city with its newborn monsters. We head for Baghdad on the banks of the Tigris. Baghdad can be translated as the Garden of Peace, but it's a bitter, fragile peace. The patrols are Iraqi, wearing uniforms supplied by the US. The army is divided by political, religious and tribal conflicts. Everyone fights for his own camp. The president is Kurd, the prime minister Shia, and the parliament is run by Sunnis. In Paradise Square, opposite the Royal Mosque, stands a concrete pedestal. Here once stood the absolute symbol of power, a statue of Saddam Hussein. On April 9, 2003, it was torn to the ground, and the United States believed it had won the war. Nine years have passed, the square is empty, and the city appears to be in a state of siege. Our passenger Ali, a theatre director back from exile in Paris, waited for a long time to see his enemy fall and return to his native city.
I was thrown in prison, and when I got out, I was given 5 days to leave Baghdad and Iraq.
But for Ali, the combat continues. And it's through theatre that he hopes to win it. His method is to reinvest the public with a sense of resistance and a taste for life.
Today, I see a country filled with weapons. The overriding color in the city is khaki, the color of soldiers. I see young people with no future, men and women deprived of any feeling of citizenship. People have forgotten their rights and their duties, as if they were lost, completely lost.
ناس بدون مواطنة بدون الشعور بالمواطنة.
In Baghdad, no one knows who the enemy is anymore. Sunnis, Shias, Islamists, Christians, each with their armies and militia, each fighting the other.
I know some poor guys who joined Al-Qaeda just to get some money. Al-Qaeda gives them money, whereas the government abandons them. They're paid to kill here and there. So they've ruined their futures, their lives, and their families for money. Why? For nothing.
On October 31st, 2010, a terrorist group claiming Al-Qaeda affiliation occupied the Catholic Cathedral in Baghdad. 5 suicide bombers activated their explosive belts. 58 people were killed. Nine years of occupation, of civil and religious wars and attacks, have caused more than 110,000 victims, essentially civilian. Syriac, Chaldean, Orthodox and Armenian churches have become choice targets. Al-Qaeda assassins and Sunni and Shia fanatics agree on nothing, except on evicting the Christians they accuse of being Western crusaders. Baghdad is erasing its illustrious Christian past. Checkpoints abound every 100 meters. Crossing Baghdad is a permanent obstacle course. Iraq is a battlefield for an array of foreign forces. Iran supports their Shia brothers, while Saudi Arabia aids theirs, the Sunnis.
I live in Al-Adamieh, a Sunni district. In 2006, it was awful. We were subjected to rocket fire, at least 50 rockets falling on us every day. It never stopped. The streets were filled with corpses and there was fighting everywhere. In Abdelaziz Avenue, the battle raged for 72 hours non-stop. Al-Qaeda, the Al-Mahdi army, the militia, everyone was fighting. Abandoned bodies became prey fit to be devoured by stray dogs. My little girl saw dogs eating the dead, which I had never seen before in my life.
Living in Baghdad means surviving attacks, but it's also an everyday battle. In the capital of the world's third biggest oil producer, the electricity system works for just a few hours a day. The best business in town is selling generators. For Khaled, my driver, a visit to the barber after 10 days on the road should be a moment to relax, a moment of peace. But nothing is that simple.
It's quite simply hell here. Sheer hell. It's not a normal life like other people have around the world. May God act to improve things. What do you say?
For sure, God is good.
Zaha is Shia and a school teacher. She's invited us to dinner.
Allah. 20 years of war. How have you got through it as a woman?
I grew up in the war. First, the war with Iran, then the embargo, and the 2 American interventions. The first in 1990 and the second in 2003. Before the Iran war, my brother was arrested, and there was just my dad to take care of the family. All us girls had no work. My father ran a small business. We'd barely grown up when the embargo strangled the whole country. Can you imagine? No fruit or vegetables, meat we couldn't afford, and fish even more so. It's only today that I can buy it. But we lived in safety. The women could move about without any problem. We had peace, but in poverty.
My wife is devout, but as we have guests, I can drink. We may be poor, but we still have a sense of hospitality.
Abdu and Zara, a Sunni and a Shia, form a rare couple today. War and religion have also imposed boundaries on love. As the lights go out once again, the neighborhood's backup generators take over.
Abdu, ما شفت الطماطة عبدو؟
We're a unique couple. I'm Shia, my husband is Sunni. Now, after the war, the 2 religions can't intermarry anymore. It wasn't the case before. What was important was that people loved each other. And what's the distinction between Shia and Sunni? It's shameful treating people this way in Iraq. We're all Muslims. A Muslim man asks for the hand of a Muslim woman, according to Islamic tradition, and that's all. It was at the end of the war that this division appeared, Shia, Sunni. Now we've come to threats. How does a Sunni dare marry a Shia? The alternative is to get divorced or die. If you don't agree to get divorced, you risk death. In our neighborhood, they shot a woman in front of her husband and children for the unique reason she was Shia and he was Sunni.
This morning, I'm not just leaving Baghdad, I'm fleeing Baghdad. At the city gates, the soldier who checks our passports tells us yet another attack has scarred the capital. Another checkpoint on the road to Babylon. We present our passports and passes, and I enter Shia country, apprehensive. The sky is like twilight. I feel like I'm wandering in the kingdom of the dead. It's raining sand. Khaled's prayers have punctuated each day on the road. I sleep while he converses with his God. Amidst the wind-blown sand appears the mythical city of Babylon. In his delusions of grandeur, Saddam Hussein imagined himself to be its king, the heir to the throne.
The president of the Iraqi Republic, Saddam Hussein, in 1988 inaugurated the restored city of Babylon, first built by Nebuchadnezzar between 604 and 562 BC.
At the height of his power, like the ancient kings before him, Saddam built his palace in the heart of the legendary city. His Tower of Babel crashed down around him in the dust of pride and ambition. His memory has been... At the end of the road lies Karbala, the Mecca, Vatican and Medina of the Shia world.
Al-Qaeda is the real enemy of Iraq, and even of all the Arab regions. Several terrorist organizations have been exported by neighboring countries. They are responsible for so many victims since Baghdad fell. And I would stress that most of the attacks have targeted the Shia community.
Pilgrims are well protected here. All the officers and soldiers are Shia. Several million faithful, including many from Iran, come every year to visit the mosques in Karbala, a boon for the holy city. Religion is a river of gold, as the saying goes.
It's obvious that when a country's native sons defend it, things go better. They're always better than an occupier. An invader always has trouble understanding the country they occupy. And as the Arab proverb says, no one knows the roads of Mecca better than its own inhabitants.
The main prayer takes place in the Hussein Mosque. The Imam's sermons have a political resonance and are broadcast throughout Iraq and the Shia world. The Shias today are imposing their numbers and their power. To the glory of the Prophet Hussein, the son of Ali, allegedly designated by Muhammad to be his only successor.
Under Saddam, 1 million Shias were detained and many of them were assassinated and thrown into mass graves. I myself, your servant, spent 12 years in Iraqi jails. My family only received news of me 1 or 2 years after I was released. I was even afraid of my own brother. I thought he was an officer who'd come to interrogate me. Yes, we suffered, and the prisons were filled with Shias.
Leaving Karbala is like crossing a graveyard. Everywhere are portraits of Shia martyrs, fallen for the glory of their prophet Hussein, Muhammad's heir. On the Baghdad-Basra highway, in the middle of the desert, our faithful old taxi finally gives up the ghost. I feel suddenly vulnerable, alone in the wilderness. As if by magic, a man appears from the sand to help us out. Perhaps this is the renowned desert hospitality. We head for a camp for the men who maintained the highway. Once they were all soldiers in Saddam's army. When the Americans came, many deserted. Without knowing who we are, they make room for us to share their meal.
The Iraqi army was hunger, thirst, and fatigue. A member of your family was taken hostage if you deserted. When they caught people who ran away, they were simply hanged. I spent 7 years in the army, and it was very tough. In Saddam's days, a soldier was paid 2,000 dinars, less than the bag he was carrying was worth. We can definitely say we were really miserable.
The highway splits the desert, and on each side of the road to Basra are the vast oil fields of Rumaila, Kurna, and Majnoon. More than half of Iraqi production is pumped from this burning desert, a treasure chest within the sand. Shell, BP, ExxonMobil, and the Chinese Sinopec have already got their hands on the bulk of it. At last, we reach Basra, where the Euphrates and the Tigris meet. Travelers once called the city the Venice of the South.
Who comes to kill us and destroy our country? Before we said the Americans, but the Americans have gone. So who else is continuing the job? Nobody knows. There's no work and the situation is unlivable. I say yes, it was better before. Obviously, if we talk about security and civic respect, we can say it was 100% better under Saddam. Today there's no respect for the citizens, as if we were no longer men. That's the truth. That's honestly what I feel. We're less and less respected. Before, an Iraqi could walk with his head held high anywhere in the world, and especially at home, as long as the state was not affected or undermined. Things have changed a lot, I can tell you. The situation was much better before.
The Venice of the South is awash with detritus of all kinds. Half of the inhabitants are unemployed. It's a humanitarian and social disaster area.
Here we have absolutely nothing. Where are we going? In this oil-rich country, we can't find work. This is how we live, the children of this country. Why? Is it fair? Does God accept this? Basra is in the middle of all the country's oil wealth. It's like the mother of oil, but it doesn't seem to gain from it. The inhabitants are poor and the streets are filled with the unemployed.
Basra was once one of the richest cities in Iraq. Today it seems to have been forgotten by both God and mankind. The curse of oil is cruel indeed. And yet, in the heart of the shanty towns, tea is always given freely, the poor man's sweet offering.
Our government isn't human. If the government doesn't take care of the poor and is only there to serve itself and fill its own pockets, how do you expect things to change? No minister has taken the trouble to come and see us, to ask how we survive or ask us if we need anything. We have nobody to talk to.
And so, since the Americans left, the poor and the powerless joined the militia and the terrorist groups, who at least provide money and protection. Everywhere in the city are portraits of the Shia Imam, Muqtada al-Sadr. His radical troops feed on poverty. The road ends at Al-Faw, on the banks of the Persian Gulf, the end of our journey. This is the Al-Bakr oil terminal, rising from the water, far from terrorist attacks and under constant military surveillance, where Iraq's fortune, oil, flows in and out. The country's fortune, and perhaps misfortune too. Wars here have always been clothed in the same color, black. Al-Faw is at the mouth of the Shatt al-Arab estuary, where the Tigris joins the Euphrates, forming the border with Iran. On the Iranian bank, a gigantic portrait of the Imam Khomeini is there to taunt us, a reminder that the Americans have gone, leaving Pandora's box wide open.
Personally, I never fought nor collaborated with the Americans. I work. I am and always have been a taxi driver. I cross the country, north to south, from Zaho to Al-Faw. I go wherever I can find work. And I don't hesitate. God be praised. All I want is to live. "20 days on the road, perhaps 100 checkpoints. With my friend Khaled, we've crossed a country which is officially no longer at war, but where peace has not been restored. A country divided by sectarian Shia, Sunni and Kurd communities, a country where terror is a daily issue. From Zaho, Erbil, Suleimania, Kirkuk, Mosul, Tikrit, Fallujah, Baghdad, Babylon, Karbala, Basra, as far as Al-Faw, we've traveled a road where danger is ever present. Khaled was under the protection of his God, and me, perhaps of Providence.